a flag, a map shaded a single color edge to edge, a headline, a man at the end of a very long table, snow and gray concrete, and the sense of a place that is mostly a threat and mostly the same in every direction. The picture is not wrong exactly. The headlines show what they show, and they are not lying about it. But they are showing you one room, and the house is the size of a continent. This is the largest country on Earth. It crosses 11 time zones. When the sun comes up over its eastern cliffs above the Pacific, it will not reach the western border for another 9 hours. You could fly across this country for a full working day and still be inside it when you landed. And inside that space live close to 190 different peoples. They speak different languages. They pray to different gods or to none. They herd reindeer or fish through ice or count their wealth in animals rather than money. Most of them have never appeared in a headline in their lives. And somewhere in the middle of it, in a forest so large it has no real edge, there was once a family that did not know what country they lived in. They had walked into the trees in 1936 to escape a government. They stayed so long that when strangers finally found them more than 40 years later, they had to be told that a war had come and gone, that men had walked on the moon and returned, and that the empire which had driven them into the forest had quietly begun to fall apart without them. They had outlasted it. They simply had not been told. We will come back to them at the very end because the country the headlines never show you is not a secret. It is just too large to fit inside a headline. It is older than the politics laid over the top of it, and stranger, and far more alive than anyone tells you. So set the map down. Set the flag down. What is actually here across all 11 time zones under all that snow? The answer does not begin in a city. It begins with water. The oldest, deepest water in the world. In the south of Siberia, ringed by mountains, there is a lake called Bal. From the air, it looks like a crack in the planet, a long blue crescent nearly 400 meters from end to end. That is more or less what it is. Bal sits in a rift, a place where the crust of the earth is slowly pulling itself apart. And into that widening wound, the water has been gathering for somewhere between 20 and 25 million years. That makes it the oldest lake on Earth. Every other lake fills in eventually with silt, with weeds, with time. Most die within a few 100,000 years. Bal has refused. It is still here. And because the rift is still opening, it is still very slowly growing deeper. It is also the deepest lake in the world. Its floor lies more than 1,600 meters down, over a mile of cold black water beneath the surface. And held inside that one lake is roughly a fifth of all the unfrozen fresh water on the planet. More than all 5 of North America's Great Lakes combined. One lake, one valley, one country. A fifth of the world's accessible drinking water sitting in a single crack in Siberia. But the number that stays with you is a smaller one. You can look into Bal and see down 40 merm. In a lake this old, this large, holding this much life, the water should be murky. It is instead almost unnervingly clear. Clear enough that in winter a coin dropped through a hole in the ice stays visible far past the point where it should have vanished into the dark. Something is keeping it clean. And for a long time, that was the lake's quiet riddle. A lake this ancient should be choked with its own history. This one washes itself. The answer is alive, and it is almost too small to see. The animal is called Episcura. It is a copepod, a translucent crustacean, a distant relative of the crab and the shrimp, except that it is barely 1.5 millimeters long, the size of a grain of rice. It lives nowhere else on Earth but this one lake. It feeds by filtering. It draws the water in, strains out the algae and the bacteria, and lets the clean water go. A single Episcura does almost nothing. but there are trillions of them drifting through the entire column of the lake, and together they make up the overwhelming majority of its living matter. They filter by Karl's waters again and again and again, year after year for as long as anyone has been able to measure. The clearest Great Lake on Earth is kept clear by an animal you would never notice. Remove it, and the water clouds. 25 million years of clarity held up by something the size of a grain of rice. And the lake made stranger things than that. Cut off for millions of years, BL evolved a world of its own. The strangest of them is the Nerper, a seal, a freshwater seal, the only true one in the world, living in a lake more than 1,000 miles from the nearest sea. No one is entirely certain how its ancestors arrived so far inland so long ago. They came somehow, they stayed, and in the isolation they became something the open ocean never made. In winter they keep breathing holes open in the ice with the claws on their flippers. In spring they haul out onto it by the 1,000 dark commas scattered across a white field that stretches past the horizon. In winter, the lake performs something close to engineering on its own. From January, BAL freezes over a meter of ice hard enough to drive a truck across, so clear in places that you can lie down on it and look straight into 40 millimeters of water beneath your own face. Pressure cracks split the surface for miles with a sound like distant thunder rolling under your feet. Gas rising from the lake bed freezes into stacked silver discs caught halfway through their escape. And along the shore, ridges of shattered ice pile up and catch the low sun like broken turquoise. Beneath all of it, the water stays alive. Most deep lakes go dead at the bottom. The lowest water sits still, loses its oxygen, and nothing can live down there. BAL does not. Twice a year, as the surface cools to the same temperature as the depths, the entire lake quietly turns itself over, carrying fresh oxygen all the way to the floor, more than a mile down. None of this is guaranteed to last. The epicura that keeps the lake clear cannot survive in warm water. And the water is slowly warming. For half a century, a paper mill stood on the southern shore, pouring its waste into the cleanest water in the world, before public anger finally forced it shut. BAL is protected now, and revered and visited. And still, like everything in this country, it carries on under a weight it did not choose. The oldest lake on Earth has outlasted ice ages and earthquakes and the slow turning of whole geological eras. Whether it outlasts us is a different question and an open one. To the Buryats, the people whose homeland this is, the lake was never only water. The Buryats are a Mongol people, more than 400,000 of them, and they have lived along these shores far longer than there has been a Russia to draw them onto a map. Their lake is not a resource. It is closer to an elder. On the great island at its heart is one of the most sacred places in the Buryat world. A center of shamanism where the spirits of the lake are understood to dwell, and where for centuries people have come to ask the water for things and to thank it. That is the first correction this country asks of you. You arrive thinking of Russia as Moscow, as Europe, as a single people facing west. And here, 2,500 miles east of the capital, are Buddhist temples and shamans' poles strung with ribbons, and a Mongol people who measure their belonging to this land not in centuries, but in the age of a lake. They are not a footnote to the country. Because that is the thing the single-colored map hides most completely. Spread across this land are peoples whose lives look nothing like the one the headlines imagine. There are the Saka, close to 500,000 of them in the Republic of Yakutia, a region the size of India, with almost no one in it. Their horses and their cattle somehow survive winters that fall to 60 below zero. In the village of Oyakon, the coldest inhabited place on Earth, the temperature has been recorded at nearly 68. The ground is frozen so deep and so permanently that the dead can be difficult to bury, and food is kept in cellars carved straight down into the permafrost, a freezer that has never once in 10,000 years switched off. How do you build a life at 60 below? Carefully and together, and with a respect for the cold that outsiders take years to learn. Cars are left running for months because an engine that stops may never start again. Children still go to school until the thermometer drops past a certain unthinkable line. The sucker did not move somewhere warmer. They stayed and they worked out how to live where almost nothing else can. And the cold has not made them grim. Each summer when the sun finally returns and the land turns briefly green, the Saka gather for Isak, a festival of the sun of fermented Mars milk and round dances that run for hours under a sky that never fully darkens.